welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Cancer, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of December 2023. I hope you are well. I'm using the Crow Tarot for you here today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box beneath this video. The second link is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. But for now, let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Cancer. Can I have 3 cards for Cancer, please? Oh, goodness, there we go. There's the first one. Button blindness there. Like, I've literally got 2 buttons and I couldn't work out which one I was supposed to press. Right, we have the Fool in your recent past. What about current energy for Cancer, please? Oh, we have the Hermit. There we are. And what about what's coming towards Cancer for December, please? Ooh, 4 of Wands. Amazing. With the Wheel of Fortune at the bottom of the deck. So there's actually really quite a bit of fire here. It's balanced out somewhat by the Earth, but this is Aries. This here is also an Aries card. This is Sagittarius. And we have got Virgo. More blindness there for a second. Virgo right in the center of it. And it feels like this Virgo energy of the Hermit is somewhat of an anchor point for you, which I like, because the energies are very big around you at the moment, right? So to be what am I going to be? Can't even remember what I'm going to be. This is the 3rd attempt I've had at doing your reading this month, Cancer. The first 2 times that I tried it, it just didn't seem to be flowing. It seemed like there was something a little bit missing. So I've been procrastinating on coming back to do it, actually. It felt like there were a lot of things that were in motion for you. And that I personally needed to be in the right space to be able to kind of juggle all of these energies around and make sense of them. So I've kind of circled doing your reading for several days, but I'm here now and I feel like everything's right and everything's flowing. But there's a possibility of feeling like events might overtake you, were it not for the anchoring energy of the Hermit sitting right in the middle of that. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, even when I did your meditation this morning before I started your reading, it was very, very powerful. It was almost actually overwhelming. And it could be that you are finding yourself in a situation that feels a little bit overwhelming at the moment. Maybe there are lots of moving parts to it. But what's coming through loud and clear is the spirit of initiation right the way through all of this here. I mean, the 10s are more often representative of endings, but this is major arcana anyway, so it's a little different. But I do believe that there is a beginning baked into every ending. In fact, you know, the ending is very necessary for the beginning, and in some ways it doesn't really... any kind of line that we draw is an arbitrary one between what position we're in, you know, whether it is an end or it is a beginning. It's the perspective that you have, and sometimes the position that you're looking at this at. You know, when you're in the midst of an ending, it can feel very much like an ending, but there's something new that's coming along that you don't see. Conversely, when you look back, you can see actually there was an ending point that happened considerably earlier than this, which started a whole slew of things in motion, which at that point you were not able to perceive was taking you somewhere new. Now, let's not get too distracted by stuff, because I do want to talk about all of these things in order, but let's get some clarifiers out. Tell me about the Fool, please. Thank you. So we have the Emperor, which is more Aries energy to support the Fool, and we have the Justice card, which is Libra. Tell me about the Hermit, please. We have the Chariot. That's Cancer energy there. Tell me about the Hermit. And we have only the second minor arcana card to come out for you, which is the Seven of Swords. And tell me about this Four of Wands, please. We have the Temperance card, of course, and we have the Star. Enough major arcana for you, Cancer. We have the Empress at the bottom of the deck. This makes a lot of sense to me now, why I found it so difficult to sit down and do this reading, and why there's been two abortive attempts to get this done, because frankly there's so much going on here, and the unifying principle that sits in the middle of all of the stuff that's going on is you, and that is the thing I think that I want to emphasize in this reading more than anything else. Because there are so many moving parts to what's going on in your life at the moment. The capacity for overwhelm is enormous. But you, in the middle of all of that, is the thing that is real and is the thing that is tangible, substantial. It's where you need to lean into, I think, this month, and lean in harder than you possibly ever have done before. We're definitely dealing with themes of self-belief and all that sort of stuff as well, and we'll kind of get into that as we get through the cards. But what you are trying to start, in any way that applies to you, whether this is something very tangible, like a new job, or you're effecting some sort of move, and we can see that there too, or whether you are just feeling like the cogs of the universe are turning and you may not know quite as yet where they are taking you. I think submission to the energies that seem to be picking you up and carrying you along is extremely important, and this is something that you are innately pretty good at, this idea of surrender. But there's a surrender and a submission to the power of self that is also coming through here, and that is something that you need to lean into, because it's where you will find excuse me, you will find your faith and find your stability, and these are two things that are going to be carrying you through. Now, for those of you who are not as familiar with tarot as others, the major arcana makes up 22 of the 78 cards of the tarot. The rest are all minor arcana, and the received wisdom is that the minor arcana represent big universal energies that are at play at you at any given point, right? So let me see, we have the Fool, we have the Emperor, Justice, Chariot, Hermit, Temperance, the Star, Wheel of Fortune, the Empress. Now, in any given reading where we have, say, for example, 10 cards, you will expect roughly 3 to 5 of those cards to be major arcana, if this is a standard reading of any sort for you, right? The exact 2 to 4, because the exact proportion of as a percentage of the tarot deck that is major arcana is about 28%, right? So 2 cards, 4 cards, not too unusual in any given reading. And then the minor arcana are the responses. They're the things that you do either to as a reaction to the forces that are playing on you, or realizing that there's it's always reactive, actually, to be honest. So to have, what do we have here? 6, 9, 10, 11 cards on the table that you are looking at now, and 9 of those to be major arcana. There's something pretty fierce happening to you right now, and the fact that all we have is the 7 of Swords and the 4 of Wands representing your actions in this mean that you're being picked up and you're being carried along with something, and there is not actually much that you are being called to do in the face of that, other than what I have already enumerated, which is the submission to what is happening, the surrender to what is happening, right? We're not interfering with this emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like, there's something happening here and you have to allow it to happen. So with all of those caveats, all of that context rather in place, let's have a look at what this is here, because I think what's going on with you is a little bigger, we can see that here, is a little bigger than just changing your job or changing your house or maybe even changing a relationship or something like that. I mean, there are forces at play that are shaping who you are as a soul. And it feels a little bit like the rise is exponential. Now, it's entirely likely that you might get a little bit of motion sickness with the G-force that seems to be slinging you here somewhere. And this is why this seems like such an important anchor for you, right? So we start off in your recent past with the energy of the Fool. Like I said, it's Aries, it's all about initiation, it's starting new things, but it has much deeper meanings than that. I love the fact that we've got these lotus flowers at the bottom of the Fool card. You don't see them very often in normal decks, but they're actually littered right the way through the Crow Tarot, and I really like the nod to the spiritual development that the lotus flower represents being scattered in amongst all of the cards. Because I mean, we always tend to be focused on the end, right? There is, you know, our spiritual culmination, right? There's the pinnacle that we're moving towards, and it might even be resource driven, as it might be a material thing, right? That's the job that I want, and everything's going to be fine and fixed when I get there. But it doesn't really take into account the shifts and the changes that happen to us as we are going through the process of it, right? So we've got you starting here something new, and it doesn't have to be something in your material world. It simply can be an entirely different way of looking at the world. But it feels like it's been a push on you, a push to change the things that you do not like, a push, in fact, even to shift yourself into a different way of being. But the other thing that the Fool talks about is what we've already alluded to, which is faith and trust and almost like a willingness to throw yourself into the void, right? It's taking that great leap of faith into something new. We have the Emperor card and the Justice card sitting underneath it. Now, the Emperor for me, it's also a card of Aries, and so there is within it inherently this idea of initiation and starting and being a warrior and all those kind of things. You know, the Fool is perhaps the more spiritual presentation of Aries energy, whereas the Emperor would be that manifestation of it on the earthly plane. And because of this, it for me is a card of getting your shit together. Like, whenever the Emperor appears, you either need to get your shit together or your shit is coming together in a way that is under your authority. Notions of sovereignty and things like this, which are also very, very important to Aries as an archetype, are not only, there's not only an awareness of them, but they're being put into motion. This feels like a whole new way of experiencing who you are, and it could be a little bit terrifying, right? And we associate warriors with courage and bravery and all those sorts of things, right? But there's nothing that's said anywhere that indicates to us that warriors do not feel fear. People generally that we consider to be brave do not feel fear. It's the fire sign push to feel the fear and use that as fuel to do it anyway. You see it in Sagittarius, you see it in Aries, you see it in Leo too. And that is the true definition of bravery and courage, right? So we've got this pushing out of a comfort zone into something entirely new, but it's happening under your authority, it's happening under your will, it's happening under your intention. And then we have the Justice card, which represents Libra, and it can represent balance and all those kind of things that we like. It can represent justice. It could, fairly flat interpretation, could see it as, involvement in court cases, anything kind of legal, contracts, all that sort of stuff. But it's a very clear nod to karma too. And karma is something that is neutral. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. When karma is simply the consequences of your actions. So what we have here is you getting your shit together creating a whole new set of karmic consequences for yourself. Goodness. But we also have an idea that you are drawing a line under previous karma, right? You've worked through some shit, whether it's been developed in this lifetime or whether it's coming from previous lifetimes. The consequences of your actions are changing because your actions are changing, and what's behind your actions, it is you. You have changed on such a fundamental level that I feel like most cancers are showing up, certainly the ones that are watching my videos, are showing up very, very differently in the world. And we've seen nods to that over the last few months anyway. I mean, this idea that you're a fucking magician and you didn't even know it seems to have come like a bolt out of the blue for most cancers, but you seized hold of it. Maybe it's seized hold of it, really even the right way of putting it, right? You've surrendered to it. You're not fighting it anymore. You have actually been what cancer is supposed to be, and that is so fucking receptive that you can take things into yourself and be those things. And I really do feel like you have altered the course of your existence. But this is merely a foundation. Like, this isn't where it ends, Cancer. Maybe this is the end of the end, or the beginning of the beginning, who knows? But there's a whole road to travel. And things are still very much in flux. I mean, the intensity of what we're seeing here is immense. And so if it's leaving you feeling a little bit nauseous, if it's leaving you feeling even a little disoriented and discombobulated, then if you take nothing else away from this reading today, it should simply be this, and it's no fucking surprise that you would feel like that. None whatsoever, because what's going on here is monumental. So with you having changed direction, and like, again, it's happened under your authority, you are sovereign, you have directed this, we come to the Hermit. And like I said, the Hermit for me feels like the anchor point in all of this. And I said that before even the Chariot came out. Now, the Chariot has a particular signification for you because it is a Cancer card, or particular significance for you, rather. But it is another card, just like the Justice card, that speaks to balance, right? Bringing things into a kind of balance. This would be more of a natural justice kind of balance. This is a balance of self. Because the Chariot card talks about everything to do with who you are as a person. And more specifically, it talks about a balancing of the polarities that make you up. And that would be, the negative and the positive, as in polarities, right? It would be the good bits of you and the bad bits of you. It's talking about, and particularly in this version of the card, the ability that you have to be able to hold your polarities and pull them together. It's a card for me of shadow work, quite often. Every now and again I get somebody in the comments who goes, it's not a card of shadow work, and I'm like, okay, anyway. Because we have this dualism of the Sphinxes, as it's usually depicted in the Waite-Smith version of the tarot, right? This one that we're all familiar with. But the Charioteer is the point of integration of the two of them. And the Charioteer is depicted as not having any reins, right? He's not having to manhandle these different polarities of self, right? He accepts them, and it is purely through determination and force of will that he draws them into alignment and then sends them in a direction. It's a card of determination, but it's also a card of, correspondingly, the success that comes when we are determined and moving forwards in a straight line, because we've balanced everything out. It's a card of really getting to know who the fuck you are and not disavowing any part of yourself. And this is when we talk about the fact that it is only ourselves that can hold us back. It really comes down to this fundamental point that most people's strength, a lot of people's very, very good qualities get put into their shadow, disavowed. We don't want those. Whatever community or collective we're born into has decided that aspect of us is a little bit too much, and the threat of being cast astray, cast asunder by the group on whom we thoroughly rely for our very survival, is so strong that we have to take these aspects of self and put them somewhere else. So to integrate those back in is to become whole. And I genuinely believe this is why we're here, right? We're to learn about ourselves, we're to progress our soul, pull all the things back in together. And we see it here in this iteration of the Chariot card, because you have got what is represented by the beasts at the front of the chariot in the horse, but you also have the mind, right, which usually belongs to the charioteer, but right, it's pulling all of the things in together. We've got charioteer and beasts in the same fucking card. The wild side of you, the tamer side of you, right, the side of you that pays attention to what other people need and want and all that sort of thing, but the relentless drive to do things your way also sitting in the middle of there, right? Independence, self-sufficiency, self-reliance, all of these, any word that you can prefix self with becomes something that sits under the auspices of the Chariot card. But, you know, I'm talking around this quite a lot, but it is fundamentally the knowledge of self. And then we have a card, this Hermit card here, that is saying that the answers that you need are always to be found within you, never outside of you, always within, underpinned by a sense of self, again, greater significance because it is the Cancer card. And then we have the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords can sometimes talk to deceit or dishonesty of some sort. But there's no card in the tarot that's all good or all bad. And this one also speaks to what I was talking about before, taking a risk, being brave. You know, these are very Aries qualities anyway. You know, taking some sort of strategic decision that's going to take you in a very, very different direction to the more mundane kind of trajectory of your life, should you choose to stay on the path that you're on. It feels to me, Cancer, like you have dug really, really deep. And what you found in digging deep is a whole sack of contradictions, of, is the word I'm looking for here, but I can't find it. Almost like excuses that you have told yourself as to why you can't do this thing, or why you shouldn't do this thing, or why. And language matters. And if you find yourself, as you probably have, using those kind of words to, I can't do that, I shouldn't do that, I mustn't do that, I have to do this. You know, it's that expectation that seems to come from outside of you, but then is generated from within, and it stops you from taking risks. It stops you from putting your head above the parapet. It stops you from trying to stand out from the crowd at all. You know, what we've talked about it ad nauseum, right? But how there seems to be a disproportionate number of cancers who, Cancer sons at least, who seem to have been born to parents who have narcissistic qualities, right? And the predisposition within Cancer to be empathetic and nurturing and caring and all that kind of thing, it has become corrupted and manipulated by the people that surround you for their own gain. And it's taken a very, very long time for you to begin the process of extracting yourself from that and starting to see things differently. But I do believe that you have arrived at that place now. And this Seven of Swords is saying, I've run out of excuses. That's me being a Cancer, by the way. I've run out of excuses, because every excuse that I've ever told myself about why I can't do something, why I shouldn't do something, you know, why I must do something else, doesn't hold any weight. It's a coping mechanism that's been put in place for the longest time to allow you to be subjugated to the needs, wants and whims of other people. It will not stand anymore. I think when some things are seen, they cannot be unseen, and that's very much where you are now. So leaning into self, leaning into a state of only consulting yourself for the answers is giving you a boldness, I think, that has shocked even you. Remember, this is the very first fucking minor arcana card that we're seeing in the reading here. Massive energies at play, shaping you, guiding you, turning you towards a destiny. And the only thing that's really needed from you at this time is you giving yourself permission to proceed, giving yourself permission to submit, to surrender to this bigger energy and where it wants to take you. And I think in this present moment, as you are watching this, most of you have decided that that is where you are going. The dismantling of everything that has kept you static for the longest time has opened everything up. Now, where you're going, where you could be going, where you might be going, might be completely fucking obscured from you at this point. It's possible. But this is where the faith and the trust comes in, because if you believe as I do, and I've seen considerable evidence for this, that there is an underlying intelligence that seems to guide our lives, guide our destiny, shape our fate, if you will. One of the things that you have to accept within that is that we don't necessarily have all the answers that we need at any point, right? Particularly if we're looking to solidly evidence the reason why we are changing position. We have to have faith in that underlying intelligence. We have to have faith in the forces that seem to be shaping us. The only way that we can access that kind of freedom and liberation is to turn within and trust ourselves so very fucking strongly that we walk with the knowledge that whatever happens, we will deal with it. Whatever happens, we will cope. I mean, we talked before about the purpose of self-work not being the complete eradication of problems. It's not the fairy tale ending, you know, the fucking Disney prince and all that sort of stuff. We're not looking for that. What we're looking to do is make ourselves so much bigger than our problems, so much stronger than our problems, so that they melt in our wake. They melt under the force of our will. They melt under the force of our faith in ourselves. And when you're practicing radical honesty, and when you're going within and you're having a look around, you can see that the only things that have stopped you doing these are the restrictions that we have put in place to make us more acceptable to the group that surround us. I mean, what I'm seeing here is on a level. There've been a couple of really standout readings this month for July. July? That's interesting. What were you up to in July, Cancer? What were you dreaming about in July? What were you daydreaming about in July? Because I feel like here in December, something's being taken off the daydream peg and it's being put on the action peg. We're doing this now, like we've spent enough time thinking about it. Once you dismantle all of the things that you have put in the way because of a need for something, acceptance, being useful, all those sorts of stuff, there are no more excuses. We've run out of excuses. Now we leap into the void, So when we come to December, we've got the Four of Wands, which is an amazing card. We also have the Temperance card and we have the Star card. Now the Temperance card is it's probably the only other card in the major arcana. I can't think of another one at this point that speaks specifically to balance. We've had Justice, we've had the Chariot, we've now got the Temperance card. Now this card talks about healing, and that's huge. But it talks about a kind of personal alchemy that's at play, right? And I did say that I felt like there were transitional forces going on here, that you were being called to level up very, very fast, probably at a breakneck speed, probably a little faster than you are comfortable with, but it is seemingly taking you towards not just those things that we talk about, rather abstractedly as healing, but something altogether new. We've got, this is a Sagittarius card, I think I've said that already. But there's always water, usually, shown somewhere on the Temperance card. And sometimes it's the angel pouring from, one cup into another, whilst also having a, foot in the water. We've got 1 foot on the ground, 1 foot on the water, and passing from cup to cup. But there's always water somewhere, and these are what look to be like tears, right? But the water's dripping down, and it's hitting this flame, which is, rather than being snuffed out or becoming reduced to a smouldering ruin, actually seems to be feeding on the water that is coming here. So it's getting bigger and bigger. It's a flame of initiation. We've got the idea that something new is coming into being. We see that here too with the Empress, right? The Empress is gratitude, it's abundance, it's fertility, it's the bringing of something new into the world. But it's something that's getting ready to be born. I read something a little while ago, and I loved it as a concept, and it fit very much with how I felt about the Emperor and the Empress, but also correspondingly the Magician and the High Priestess. And that thing said that the Magician and the High Priestess were the heavenly parents of the Fool. And I was like, oh, I like that, because for me they're the power couple of the major arcana. The Empress and the Emperor were the earthly parents of the Fool. Now, I always thought that was quite interesting, because it meant that even when the Fool wasn't present, if you had either of those couplings appearing in your reading, then the Fool is implied. The Fool is close. Maybe slightly further away, maybe closer, who knows. So you've got the Empress and you've got the Emperor both appearing here. And it's that sense that even if the Fool hadn't been here, which it is, we would be feeling a sense of the Fool getting ready to emerge, ready to be born. What I think is really interesting is I don't think that you know where you're going yet, because the Emperor's over here. We've got the structure, the order, the authority, the sovereignty of the Emperor. You getting your shit together over here. But there's an undercurrent of Empress. She's shown her face here, but she's not yet part of the reading, which means that despite there being a Fool here, it feels to me like there's going to be another Fool when these two unite. So maybe you've had the beginning of the end. Maybe this is what's coming through here. It's the beginning of the end. We've got to get to the end of the end and the beginning of the beginning. Remember, it depends on where you're sitting as to where you perceive yourself to be. So we've got this alchemical process of your tears turning into something driven, something inspired, something very, very creative that doesn't need to necessarily relate to material projects that you're in front of you, but perhaps to a whole way of existing, full stop. Balanced, self-aware, equipped with the ability to be able to go and find the answers that you need. And sometimes the answer is simply that you have to have faith, and simply that it is time to jump off the cliff, take that leap into the void. But I do feel like everything here is redirecting you towards a different kind of outcome than you could have possibly imagined for yourself. The Star card here is another card of healing and hope and whatnot, right? Where we've got similarities in the meanings, although important differences too between these two cards. They both speak to healing. This is an alchemical process that is being undergone. This is a washing clean. This is a purification right here. And maybe it's a purification that comes by way of fire for you. Might even say almost certainly, because of the Four of Wands being there. But the star is also the future. The star is Aquarius, right? It's taking you towards something on the horizon and saying, it's this way. It's your guiding star, if you will. Now, your guiding star isn't outside of you, it is within. We're talking about, if you hadn't already picked up, which you probably have, your intuition. Where is your intuition telling you that you should be going? What's the direction of travel here? What has become intolerable? And these could be things that you deeply enjoyed just months ago, but now you've arrived at a place where they're intolerable. No, I have to do something else. There's a discomfort here, but there's more tipping the balance in favor of newness, initiation, novelty, sovereignty, authority, all of the things that we've been talking about throughout this reading, to create a new foundation for yourself. And it's a new foundation of action. And like I said, for some of you it could involve a moving house, for some of you it could be involving moving jobs. Those things are there. I mean, almost sort of take those as read, that they're there. But it's much, much bigger than that, Cancer. Because the Wheel of Fortune is here. Wheel of Fortune and Justice. Huge redirection. And just as you've got to where you are right now, by way of your personal work, by way of the dismantling that I was talking about before, of all of the things that have held you back, you know, that to arrive at a place that recognizes that no longer do you have any excuses for not doing what your soul is, I think at this point, hollering at you to do. Even if your 3D human conscious mind can't quite work out what the message is, the feeling of being pulled along is strong enough that the impetus here is to do things differently, build differently. Oh, there's those fucking lotus flowers again there. There's an awareness. You notice that the only earth cards that we've got on the table are the Hermit and the Empress. We're completely devoid of pentacles here. We've got earth energy, but it's internal. Like, it's deeply feminine. I mean, earth is feminine anyway, but go within, look for the answers within, look for your own personal star within, because that is your guiding star. It's nothing that is appearing outside of you. This is what's dragging you towards the future. And then the Empress card here is saying that there is something that is gestating within you, and it's about to be born. And it feels unexpected. And maybe that's because, you know, this Fool over here, you're like, well, this is what it's like. This is the thing. You know, it puts me in mind of those stories that you hear about pregnancies and births before, you know, scanning pregnant women was a thing. Where, you know, you give birth to a baby and, you know, everybody's like, well done, you gave birth to the baby, everything's great. And the woman's lying there in the bed and cuddling her baby, and, you know, husband's patting her on the head for good job with the baby and all that. And then all of a sudden she goes back into labour and there's a second and a third baby in there. I mean, it's not terribly common, but it did happen, and I've read about it lots of times. And everybody's like, well, fuck, I thought this was going to be the thing. But then there's another thing that's coming out, and suddenly, as a mother of multiples, I have to tell you that it is definitely more work than just 2 babies. It goes up in an order of magnitude the more that you have. I did have a friend who had triplets that I met at a multiples group when my twins were very small, and it was funny. the level of deep understanding and respect that came to her from mothers of twins, because we know how much more fucking work it is to just have 2 of them at the same time. To have 3 of them at the same time, no. No. I think there's a distinct possibility, Cancer, that you have a second, if not a third, fool that is waiting to be born, and you are in the period between the first delivery and your body, whether it's spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, saying, oh, hang on, there's something else in here. This is coming out as well, and this is coming out. And this is why I think probably the idea of labour and delivery is a really, really good one for this, because this is something that you don't have any control over. Any of you who have ever had a baby know, like, when that starts, there is no fucking control that you have over it at all. It's going to do what it's going to do, and the best thing that you can do is to try and support it, get in the right positions, you know, do the breathing, all that sort of thing. But it's going to do what it's going to do. And this is where you are right now, Cancer. You aren't just running into 2024. It seems to me like there's kind of screeching over the finish line, like sideways in style and all that kind of thing. But I'd be really intrigued to see what January's like for you, because it just seems like this energy is so intense and is escalating so hard over the course of December that there needs to be a point where it peaks, where the Fool comes out, and maybe the next Fool comes out, and everything is different. Immediately, everything is different. Such that I would posit, in just a few short months, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the case by the end of January. Like, you will not recognise yourself in 2 months because of what you are doing and the way that you are thinking about things and how you are spending your time. Right. Fucking hell. I'm going to go do the extended now. This is absolutely fascinating. You're very welcome to join me if you would like to do so. You can do that on Circle. You can do that on Vimeo. If neither of those are of interest to you, that's absolutely fine. Take away simply this: December is going to be intense as fuck for you, and at no point should you fight it. You think about the analogy of labour and delivery, and I would be considering what position you want to be in, right? Let gravity help you on this one. Just kind of get in, get comfortable, submit to the process, know that it will be over at some point, but what you've got at the end of it is worth just how overwhelming it's been to get there, you know? Fucking hell. Right. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.